And we're back. Senators Durbin and Senator Specter, welcome both. Let me share with you the latest email that has been obtained, released by the Department of Justice. Here's the headlines in the newspapers about it. It says in the New York Times, headline, Gonzales met with advisors on dismissals. Record seems at odds with past comments. And here is the email. It's from Kyle Simpson, the Attorney General's Chief of Staff. It talks about a meeting for next Monday, meeting November 27th, 2006. The Attorney General, me, Monica, Deputy Attorney General, others, 1 hour in the Attorney General's conference room. Thanks. A meeting on this very subject. And yet, 12 days ago, the Attorney General of the United States met with the press and spoke to the nation and said this.
That is, in essence, what I knew about the process. Was not involved in seeing any memos, was not involved in any discussions about what was going on. That's basically what I knew as the Attorney General. I never saw documents. We never had a discussion about where things stood.
Senator Durbin, reading that memo and hearing those comments, what do you conclude?
Tim, there's a standing rule in Washington that if you have bad news, you want to release it as late as you can on Friday, hoping people will miss it. And that's when this information was released. Frankly, it is the third contradiction now that comes from the Attorney General. First, he said the White House was not involved. We've seen from the emails that they were. Second, he said these men were dismissed. I should say these U.S. attorneys were dismissed because of performance. Now we find out there were political considerations, starting with Karl Rove and others. And now the Attorney General's statement of just a few days ago has been contradicted by the fact he was involved in a meeting where this was discussed, and it wasn't the only meeting he's been involved in. It really raises a question about credibility, and I think that's why we need to have the most important players before the Senate Judiciary Committee under oath with a transcript telling the whole truth.
Senator Specter, when you hear the Attorney General say that he was not involved in any discussions about what was going on, and he never had a discussion about where things stood, and you read that email of an hour meeting in his conference room on this very subject, what do you conclude?
I think that there's a second very critical element in this matter, and that is whether the Attorney General has been candid. And this on top of the underlying question as to whether the Department of Justice acted properly or improperly in asking for the resignations makes it very important that the Judiciary Committee get to the bottom of it. I'm more interested, Tim, than connecting the dots. I want to find out what the facts are. And we're going to have Kyle Sampson in next Thursday. We're going to have the Attorney General in the Tuesday after we come back from recess. And I think Attorney General Gonzales' testimony will be a make or break situation for him. There are a lot of questions to be answered beyond credibility. There's no doubt that what has happened has had a very chilling effect on the United States attorneys across the country. Listen, they serve at the pleasure of the president, and President Clinton discharged in one fell swoop all 93 so that the president can discharge without a reason, but I think they cannot be discharged for a bad reason. There are conflicting stories as to what happened with these 8 U.S. attorneys, and I think the Judiciary Committee has to have a very intense investigation to find out what the facts were.
Do you believe that the Attorney General has been candid, Senator Specter?
Well, on the appearance, he's got questions to answer. I'm not going to make a judgment based upon newspaper stories. I talked to the Attorney General yesterday, and I told him that he would have an opportunity, as far as I was concerned, to present his case, but that he was going to have an explanation as to why he said he wasn't involved in discussions. That's the key word. And now you have these emails which appear to contradict that. Look, we have to have an Attorney General who is candid, truthful. And if we find he has not been candid and truthful, that's a very compelling reason for him not to stay on.
Senator Durbin, in the USA Today on March 7th, the Attorney General wrote this: to be clear, it was for reasons related to policy, priorities, and management what have been referred to broadly as performance-related reasons. While I am grateful for the public service of these U.S. attorneys, they simply lost my confidence. I hope that this episode ultimately will be recognized for what it is, an overblown personnel matter. If the Attorney General is saying that these U.S. attorneys lost his confidence because of their performance-related reasons, then he obviously reviewed the cases, reviewed their situations, reviewed their work records, and came out with this reason for their dismissal. That means he was intimately involved.
Tim, there were so many contradictions in what the Attorney General's already told us, and your viewers have just got to meet two of these dismissed U.S. attorneys on a more personal basis. John McKay and Mr. Iglesias come off as very good professional prosecutors, and it's very clear what has happened here. They fell out of favor politically. The emails now tell us that story. As Senator Specter said, each new president gets to put in a new team of U.S. attorneys. But as Mr. Iglesias noted, over the last 25 years, only 2 out of the 486 U.S. attorneys have been removed for something other than cause, something other than criminal misconduct. And here in one fell swoop, there were 8 U.S. attorneys that were dismissed. We know there was politics behind it. The reason why it's so significant is that a U.S. attorney in many respects has more power than many people in the federal government. And we have to make certain that that U.S. attorney's credibility is protected. One thing I'll tell you is that I left a restaurant in Chicago the other night, stopped by a fellow at the door who gave me his name, and he says, "I'm an assistant U.S. attorney here in the Northern District of Illinois. Please get to the bottom of this. I've given my life to this. This shadow, this cloud over the U.S. attorneys' offices across America has got to be lifted, and that's why these hearings are so important."